Welcome on in. Latest edition, Warchant Report powered by Cummins. Give them a follow on Instagram, Cummins Lifestyle. It's all one word, a global power leader. The Own and Unplugged tour crisscrossing this fantastic country of ours. Making a stop November 9th in South Bend, Indiana, coinciding with a football game that fingers and toes crossed will be competitive. Cummins Lifestyle, again, all one word over there on Instagram. Give them a follow. Florida State fans behind this promotion, helping us out here on this very program. On the screen, Ira Schofel, managing editor of Warchant.com. Jeff Cameron, wildly popular host of now a 3-hour radio show once again. Order has been restored to the airwaves in Tallahassee and beyond. Thanks for being here. Hit the thumbs up. Again, it is the Warchant Report powered by Cummins. Week 4, Florida State taking on Cal. That will be 7 p.m. ESPN2 in Doak Campbell Stadium. Cal Twitter saying they're going to take it over and call it Woke Campbell Stadium, but we're not going to get into all that nonsense, everybody. We're here to talk about the football game. Hit the thumbs up. Thanks for doing this, everybody, and joining us. We're going to start off with you, Jeff Cameron.
Okay.
Because you're going to be doing a meet and greet over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill on Friday night with Corey Clark at 5 o'clock. You'll be doing a pregame show 9 a.m. on Saturday, and then doing another meet and greet from 4 to 6 p.m. over at Hotel Indigo.
Buddy, I'm a meet and greeting fool. I'll meet and greet you. Come on, let's go. Let's get together.
Sometimes he'll greet you, then meet you.
Yeah, that's right.
Like
he's
done. He'll go either way.
I'm well versed.
I don't even know why we're doing the show. We should just be playing Jeff's monologue from the Monday show just on loop on all Warchant platforms. But
it was a pretty good one. I was proud of that. Thank you, Aslan. That was pretty good.
I mean, it really does sum everything up. So I feel almost like foolish asking the questions I'm going to be asking for the next 30 minutes on this program. But I don't know. Let me be crazy and be a little bit glass half full. They're a kick away from maybe something crazy happening in Dublin Island to beating Georgia Tech. I'm not going to use any of that about the Boston College game. It feels like they were outclassed to a certain degree in that one. But, Memphis, you turn the ball over 3 times and you're still only 1 score down, and you had a chance to tie it up, however few that felt like. Are we at a point, though, does this feel like this is potentially more than a season's worth of struggles ahead for Florida State, Jeff? Or does it feel like it's maybe just a one-season problem for Florida State? They can get this thing fixed pretty quickly if things go their way.
I would love for that to be the answer, Aslan, but I don't think it is. I think they're going to have some problems here trying to get this turned around. I'm definitely afraid of it because obviously nobody wants to see that. And it's shocking to have seen how this has all played out. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they hit hard into the portal. They get 20, 25 kids. They convince some donors that, hey, we need you now more than ever. I know it's tough for this ass to happen right now, but it's got to happen. I don't know. Maybe that happens. But it does feel like, to some degree, it's not a complete reset, but it does feel like we're almost back to the beginning when Mike got here and was trying to build it back up. And I don't know how that's even possible, but that's where we're at, I fear.
Ira, for you, I mean, do those things, can a reasonable person say that and have an audience that won't throw rotten produce at them? That, they're really all a few plays away from at least being, 2-1. I'm not trying to say they could be 3-0, but a few things going away from being 2-1. Does it feel like this is just kind of a season blip, or do you see the problems that are starting to surface maybe being things that are going to take more than an off season to flush out and fix up?
Well, I mean, I think you can, I can definitely, there's merit to what you're saying. In that first game, it's not just the kick. If they recover the fumbles that they could have recovered, I mean, there's a lot of things that if Florida State had done in that Georgia Tech game, they could have won that game. And then the Memphis game, like you said, they kind of gave it to them in a lot of areas, but that's really what this team is. Even the Boston College game, to some degree, a lot of the wounds are self-inflicted. It's just a bad football team. And that's what bad football teams do. So you can say, well, if we hadn't, turn the ball over 25 times, we might win that game. But you did turn the ball over 25 times. So, that's who they are right now. So, but from a big picture standpoint, I would push back a little bit on Jeff from the sense of there is young talent on this team. Now, the concern, I'm sure one of the big concerns Jeff has, and I have it too, is the lines of scrimmage. You have so many veterans on the lines of scrimmage this season, and you're not going to have most of them next season. And it's hard to just replenish offensive and defensive linemen through the transfer portal. But there's a lot of young talent. And if you get much better quarterback play, that can change a lot of things. And we're seeing that right now. Like, they're not getting very good quarterback play and everything is exposed. If you get good quarterback play, that can erase a lot of problems. And because you can scheme around things if you've got a really good quarterback. So I'm not going to say it's going to be something that they languish for years because there is a lot of talent at other positions. but they're going to have to figure out what to do on the line of scrimmage. Now, maybe some of the, on the defensive line, maybe some of those guys decide to stay in college for another year because this year has not been very good. Some of those guys have more eligibility, but the offensive line is going to be a whole lot of new faces, and they may need to start beginning that process this season, getting those guys some playing time.
Well, let me keep it with you then, Ira. Let's talk about that offensive line. DJ has taken a large brunt of the anger of this fan base and the blame for things. But is this week kind of like a line in the sand moment for this offensive line? They're going to have Alex Atkins back. We're not sure just how healthy or unhealthy they are, but is this kind of a last final moment for this sort of core of guys, maybe this offensive line coach, to prove themselves of being capable enough to help this offense get things turned around and be part of the solution? Because if you can't block it up, no one's got a shot.
Yeah, I mean, the injuries are part of it. And this past week, they didn't have either of their starting tackles. I think some other guys on the offensive line have been dealing with some things also. But even that's not an excuse. I mean, the guys that were going up against Memphis, in a lot of cases, I think were guys that Florida State's backup should have been able to block. And it really does feel like that offensive line has regressed individually and as a group. Yeah, man, this is a great opportunity with Alex Atkins there for 4 quarters for them to show some improvement and just be competent. And that does make it unfair somewhat to judge DJ, but also, man, like a good quarterback can compete even if things aren't going well around him, and he hasn't been doing that. So it's a combination of things. But I would like to see more of some of these young offensive linemen. Andre Otto and Bryson Estes is not even a young offensive lineman anymore, but just some of these other guys to see if they'll compete in a game, because in a lot of cases this offensive line did not compete last week.
What about you, Jeff? Do you think they're starting to run out of cover, the offensive line, even if DJ does start on Saturday, which we haven't heard any indications from Coach Norvell otherwise? I mean, is this kind of finally they've got to show something? They've got to figure something out to help give the spark this offense needs.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't play some of those younger guys. I really look at this across the board as a need to do that. The veteran players that have played, for the most part, have not been very good at all. I have no real reason to believe they're suddenly going to show us something Saturday against a very physical Cal team. I have my doubts that's in that locker room, but I'd certainly like to see Otto, who I've talked about a lot and is a kid that I think can really play. And at the same time, Ira addressed it. He's right. It's tough when you don't have your 2 tackles. I mean, I don't think this is a great offensive line, even if they have them, but it's a terrible offensive line if they don't. And we've seen that. So it's hard to imagine we're going to see a big turnaround here. If you're asking if it's the last stand, I guess we'll see if Alex Atkins being there on the sideline will help aid that endeavor. It certainly can't hurt. But their physical ability has seemingly eroded in many cases. Robert Scott's not the player he once was when he plays. That's due to injuries. I hate it for the young man. I think he's a good kid. He was once a very good player. He doesn't look very good anymore. You saw on the left side with Darius, even when he was playing, I know he got injured in warmups last week. He had regressed for whatever reason. I don't know what that's about. Even Maurice Smith, a guy who's played a ton of football here, has been bad at center this year. It's hard. It's left us all scratching our head, because some of these guys have played a good brand of football in the past, and they're not doing it now. It's hard to explain how that can happen.
There have been, real quick, sorry to interrupt, Aslan, but there have been games in the past, last year against Clemson. There have been other games in the past, these last couple of years, where this offensive line has been dominated at times, but against really good competition.
Right.
That was startling, because Memphis's defensive line is not what I would consider really good.
Yeah. I don't know if DJ Uiagalelei has been considered really good since he's gotten to Florida State, Ira. What is the calculus in sticking with him if you're Mike Norvell? And if at some point Brock gets into a game, like what's the upshot that you could possibly see Brock providing? Is there a downside if he does come into a game and maybe doesn't perform to the level that you think, or I don't want to even say think, but you would hope he would be able to be performing at?
There's definitely a downside. I mean, again, it's not like Brock was great when he got put into action last year. What I do like about Brock is he is competitive. And that's the word I keep coming back to with this football team. And a lot of that stems from DJ. And again, I like DJ. I've talked to him a little bit. Everything we hear about him is he's a good kid. So I don't want to beat him down. But when you watch him play, I feel like if you put a close-up camera on him playing a 1st and 10 in the first quarter and a 3rd and 14 trailing by 1 in the fourth quarter, it looks like the same thing. Like there's no sense of urgency. There's no sense of I cannot take this sack because we can't have it in this situation. It's just like every play looks like every other play. It looks like every play looks like there's nothing on the line. And that's not how football is played. And I think a lot of times the other guys take cues from their quarterback. So for that reason, and because of Brock Glenn's mobility, man, I want somebody out there who's going to compete a little bit more. And now on some teams, it may be fine to be the way DJ is. Maybe Oregon State last year, they were so good around him that it was okay. But this team needs something, man. These guys need some juice. And so I would definitely make the move. I don't know that he's going to do it. But, yeah, there is a downside. I mean, Brock Glenn could go out there and turn the ball over 4 times. I mean, think back to when Clint Trickett was here and the first time he got a start and against Clemson, kind of because E.J. Manuel was injured, threw for 300 yards. It wasn't great, but he showed something. Next week, they play Clint Trickett again. He turns the ball over three times, I think in the first 3 or 4 possessions, and they can never get out of that hole. So that can definitely happen. But, man, this team is not going anywhere, it seems to me, with DJ at quarterback.
What's the calculus for you, Jeff, to project and think what Mike Norvell's processing to stick with DJ if he doesn't do that? And, you know, is there any merit maybe to giving Brock a few more weeks possibly? Because if you throw him out there and things don't go well, then like you've kind of pulled the emergency hatch. You know, you've thrown out the safety parachute. If that one doesn't work, then oh boy, what happens from there?
I'd start him this Saturday. I see no reason not to start him this Saturday. I think he gives you a fighting chance because of what I alluded to, which is his mobility. I think it changes the math a little bit in the run game. I'm not telling you that he's going to come in and save the day and Florida State's going to win all their games. He'll make mistakes. Quarterbacks have to take their lumps when they first start for a program. And, you know, that's going to be true of him too. But I do think with his legs, you can change your offense a little bit, change the dynamic of your offense a little bit. And also he can survive when these blitzes come and the offensive line doesn't pick him up, which they never do. You know, he can maybe make a guy miss and keep a play alive in a way that DJ just hasn't shown the ability to do it. I feel bad for DJ. I think he came here thinking they could run the ball and that they would throw off a play action, which was what we were all told and certainly what we thought they were planning to do. That hasn't happened at all. They can't run, and he's immobile in a way that he's never been in his career. Listen, he was never fast. He was never all that elusive, but he ran the ball better in every stop along the way prior to here. So I believe, and I don't know this to be a fact, but I think he's banged up a little bit because he looks slower now than he's ever looked. And he almost looks like he's shell-shocked, and I don't say that flippantly. And I can see why he would be. Florida State's had a real hard time blocking for him. So I don't see any reason not to get a good look at what Brock is. I think you're playing for next year. Coaches don't ever want to admit that. They don't like to say it. I understand that practice is hopefully a meritocracy where guys compete and the guy who looks best gets the opportunity. But at some point, the games have to matter. And I don't care if DJ is really good on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday and wins the day. He's been awful in games. And I don't think Brock could do much worse. So I'd be willing to take my lumps. I would say this to many of the young players. You're going to get an opportunity, perhaps pushed into action sooner than we wanted you to. We understand mistakes are part of that. There's lessons to be learned. That's okay. Play loose, play free, do what you've been taught to do. We want to get a sense of who you are moving forward. I just don't know what you have to gain by putting DJ out there this Saturday night. If he plays poorly, and I sure hope he doesn't, and if he starts, man, this fan base is going to be livid. This is not going to be a popular move. Mike has lost popularity points already this year. It'll nosedive if he starts them and this offense looks incompetent again.
Florida State taking on Cal. Haven't even mentioned the fact of taking on the Golden Bears because there's so much to talk about here in our own house. But they will be taking on Cal, 7 o'clock, ESPN2. Let's get some insight into the Golden Bears. For that, we'll have Matt LaSerre join us next segment with Jim McGill from Bear Insider. Keep it here. It's the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. Your favorite football team doesn't stop pushing its limits on the climb to the top, and neither does a global power technology leader like Cummins. Cummins has released its new QG4000i generator and is taking it across the country to show America that whether it's turbo diesel engines or taking it easy in your RV, life is a little bit better with a touch of the Cummins lifestyle. The Own and Unplugged tour is crisscrossing the country, including a stop in South Bend, Indiana, home of Notre Dame, when the Fighting Irish host Florida State on November 9th. FSU will play like a champion. You come by and tailgate like one. Follow Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram for updates, and don't forget to get involved every week in generating discussion on Wake Up Warchant for your opportunity to win free Cummins swag and a chance at a portable generator or power station. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Give it a follow. Welcome back in. Warchant Report powered by Cummins. Hopefully you're just coming back from going to Instagram.com and following the Cummins Lifestyle account over on Instagram. That would be certainly cool. That's all we're asking from you. Check out all the cool things you can do with your RV, your recreational activities when you use Cummins products, namely the Onin line, the portable generators, portable power stations. It's all there. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Florida State again taking on Cal, 3-0 Cal. The Bears coming to town undefeated. Who'd have thought that one? Let's get some insights into just how they've been able to get to the 3-0 so far this season. Our own Matt LaSerre caught up with Jim McGill over on the Bear Inside.
Start off with the overlying question, or like the main thing everyone's wondering is what's kind of the status of running back Jaden Ott going into this game?
Definitely not 100%. He had a couple of touchdowns in the first game, and he went down with an injury. And when he played against Auburn, anybody that saw the game could see that he wasn't effective. He didn't have lateral mobility, and the thought was that he'd get a little bit of reps last week, but Wilcox said that the doctors advised against it and ruled it out. So he said that he, along with a number of other injured guys, are considered probable for this week. But if you do see him, I don't think you'll see a full strength Ott, and I don't think you'd see a full game either. They've got a pretty deep running back room, so there's no reason to run him too hard until he's healthier. They've got a bye week coming up next week too, so that's a consideration.
Let's go into the quarterback play. Mendoza, I think this is his first game as the true starter, right? I think they had that Orr by his name, for the first few games. What has he kind of shown so far?
He gained about 20 pounds, worked out really hard. He's able to withstand contact a lot more, so he's really negated probably the biggest weakness in this game. He's had a couple of games in a row where he's thrown for well over 70%, so his completion percentage for the year is a little over 70%. I think he's 20th in the nation in completion percentage. So he's shown some real growth in his game. He definitely has some room to grow too, but you pair him with a good running game and a pretty deep receiving room, and he can be pretty effective. The only thing I would say is a drawback is the offensive line has been okay, but sometimes they'll just give up bafflingly brutal sacks. He's gotten crushed a few times.
Going into the rest of the offense, what other weapons, what other running backs, wide receivers, what do you think we'll see kind of give it to Florida State?
The running back room is pretty deep. Javian Thomas, he goes by the Jet because he's really quick. He has taken advantage of his opportunity to play with had a breakout game this last week with 169 yards and just 17 carries. He's a really fast, tough, explosive back. He's the guy you probably see the most. Kadarius Callaway was an original Alabama signee, and he bounced around a little bit before ending up transferring to Cal. And he had a really good camp, and people were pretty excited about him. But finally, he had a breakout game last week. He had a long 60-yard run, and I think he ran for 87 yards and just like 7 carries last week. You've got guys behind them too.
Awesome, man. And then I guess we'll kind of go back into the defense a little bit now because we've covered the offense. What should we expect from maybe this defensive front to start?
The Bears run a 2-4-5 defense, and that sounds kind of odd because how are you going to play defensive line with 2 players? But they're not really playing with 2. Typically, they'll have their edge linebackers or outside linebackers line up on the outside, just like their defensive ends. Up the middle, they're pretty stout. They have a transfer from Notre Dame, Aiden Naaina, who has been really stellar up the middle. He had 6 tackles this last game, and I don't even remember the last time a nose tackle at Cal had 6 tackles. Usually they're the guys that are kind of taking on 2 blocks and holding the gaps, but he was throwing guys around out there, and they have a lot of other pretty stout guys up the middle too. Stanley Correa, if he's healthy enough. Ricky Correa, if he's healthy enough to play, and Stanley McKenzie and Nate Burrell. They go about 5 or 6 deep up the middle, and then lining up on the edge. The Bears' top pass rusher has been out most of the season, David Reese, but the guy who took his place, true sophomore, Ryan McCulloch, he's been a real revelation. I think he's 3rd in the nation in pass pressures. And Xavier Carlton on the other end, big 6'8", 275. guy who was playing outside linebacker for them, but he was a defensive end at Utah before he transferred to Cal. He had 2.5 sacks last week, so those guys are providing the primary pressure.
Yeah, and then this secondary, also a big strength of this defense, leads the ACC in interceptions with 9, I believe. What do you think we'll see there?
They play man all day right now because Marcus Harris came in from Idaho, and he's just money in coverage. And Noel Williams now, they actually have to throw at him this year, which they didn't do much last year. And he leads the nation with 4 interceptions and barely missed a couple more. They have a lot of depth in the DB room. At safety, they brought in Ryan Yates, and they brought in cornerback Josiah Wagner from the Oklahoma and LSU programs, and Craig Woodson's one of the top safeties in the country. So they've built a lot of real quality depth in the defensive backfield. So it's allowed them to be much more aggressive on defense.
But thank you once again. That is Jim McGill with Bears Insider. Thank you so much, Jim, for coming on today.
Thanks to Matt. Thanks to Jim. He was also on Wake Up Warchant earlier this week. We thank you, Jim. Don't forget, pregame show, 9 a.m. on Saturday, getting you ready for this one. And then a meet and greet from 4 to 6 o'clock at Hotel Indigo with Jeff Cameron, Tom Lang, and the crew. Again, Hotel Indigo in College Town. It's right on your way to the game. Go do it. If you don't feel like waiting until Saturday to hear and see from Jeff and company, go to the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 5 o'clock, live meet and greet, happy hour, some call it, 2475 Appalachian Parkway. That's the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. All right, Jeff, let's start off with you on this one. I think as we record this one, it's 2.5 point spread. Florida State is favored by Cal 3-0, I think for the first time since 2019. They've won 6 consecutive regular season games, if you want to look at it through that sort of prism. I've heard their beat talk about it. Just how good is Cal? Is this maybe the best team Florida State has played? Is there any sort of matchup that makes you feel good or a little more anxious than you would?
I'm anxious about any team Florida State plays now. I feel like there's reason to be nervous about any team that Florida State matches up against right now. I think the Mendoza kid's all right. You know, I don't think this is a special team. I wouldn't try to tell you that. I do like the linebacker, the Teddy Buchanan kid, I think his name is. He's a good player. He really pops on film. They have, I know the Auburn win. There were a lot of turnovers there from Auburn. The thing I don't like for this matchup for Florida State, let's put it this way. I don't know how great Cal is. We're all going to find out. They play Florida State, Miami, and Pitt back-to-back games. So we'll see if they're any good or not. If they come out of that 2 out of 3, they're probably a pretty decent team. But what they are is pretty well coached and very physical. So we'll see, how many quick twitch guys there are and so forth. But I do think that they're well coached, and I do think they're disciplined, and I do think they're physical. So, we haven't seen Florida State do any of those things so far this year, and that is disconcerting. Doesn't mean they can't, doesn't mean they won't. But certainly they're going to have to come out and play hard and play smart and play better than they have if they're going to beat Cal. I get why Florida State's favored. This roster is better than Cal's roster. But then again, Florida State's roster was better than Memphis's roster. It was better than BC's and better than Georgia Tech's. That hasn't mattered up to this point. I do think that, as a team, they play well together. Let's put it that way. Cal does.
Cal's defeated Cal Davis, which is an FCS team. They defeated Auburn out there on the Plains 21-14, and then last week took out San Diego State 31-10. If I'm not mistaken, man, DJ lit up Cal last year. So I don't know. Maybe that's what the Sharps over in the desert are thinking about. What is it about Cal that it's only maybe, I think, a 2.5 point spread, and Florida State's actually favored in this one, being 0-3, while the Golden Bears are 3-0?
Yeah, he wasn't the only one that lit them up last year. Their defense was pretty terrible, and it has played really well so far. The challenge with this game, and it happens sometimes early in the season, usually around this time of year, where teams haven't sometimes played really good competition. Florida State's played relatively good competition, 2 conference games and a really good group of 5 school. You start looking at Cal and you look at the results and say, okay, what is San Diego State? Auburn obviously, has not, been impressive so far, certainly offensively. This could end up being a really rough year for Auburn. We'll see how it turns around, but they played terribly in that game against Cal. And then you look at, just when you start looking at, okay, who did you play and who have they beaten? And it's not a lot of really good quality teams on not only Cal's schedule, but the teams that they've beaten, who they have played so far. So I don't think Cal's very an outstanding team. I think they're probably a little bit overrated early this season. But as Jeff said, it doesn't matter really when you look at this Florida State team. If Florida State cares to be there, I think they can win this game. I think if they play hard, if they play the way we thought, just even remotely close to the way we thought they were going to play, or the way Mike Norvell's teams have played the last few years, I think Florida State would win this game. But I don't know if any of that matters, to Jeff's point. If Cal's offense, they looks like they're going to get the running back this week. If they are having a lot of success on offense, to me, that would tell you that this defense is cashed it in. I do think Florida State's defense, if they come to play, even the way they did last week against Memphis, I think they should have a really good game, and Florida State should be in it throughout. But, again, I wonder now at 0-3 what the mindset of this Florida State team is. And if they don't bring it, yeah, they definitely can lose at home.
DJ was 19 for 25 with 5 touchdowns in the air against Cal last year. So maybe those uniforms might spark something in our guy from Inland Empire, California. Maybe does well against West Coast teams. Who knows? Give me a key to victory, if you don't mind, Ira Schofel. Something reasonable that we can hold on to in these hours leading up to the game.
All right, this is going to sound like fantasy land, and probably is. But how about running the football? If they could run the football, guys, bear with me here. I think they have a chance to win the football game. But really, that to me, that's what it comes down to. And that, I kind of wish, we were out of practice this week. I kind of wish Mike Norvell had just ran inside drill, just running offense the entire week. Just every day, we're just trying to run the football. That's not what they did. It was kind of business as usual at practice. But to me, that's everything. If they can't run the football, they're going to have a tough time against anybody, but certainly this team.
Jeff, you've been talking about tackling. They got to tackle. The defense can't be the key to victory, or can they be for another week for you when it comes to this one?
Well, I agree with Ira's point that if the defense shows up, they can really limit what Cal does. I don't think that's a dynamic offense at Cal. So I agree. If they show up and they're physical and they play hard, yeah, they'll keep the game interesting. I'm really more worried about the other side of the ball. I'm worried about Florida State's ability to do anything on offense against this Cal defense. I think it's a pretty good Cal defense. I really do. I think they've got a couple of really good players. The one kid in the secondary with the 4 picks, the linebacker who I mentioned a moment ago, the Buchanan kid, flies around, really physical, better than anybody Florida State has a linebacker at this point. So it's, I worry about that. I think, to Ira's point, maybe Florida State could try to eke out a 16-13 type game is what it feels like to me. But I have my doubts. I have my doubts at this point.
All right. Well, you got one segment left to build up some confidence and make your pick there. And that's what we're all going to do. It's the best part of the show, some might say. And it's coming up next on the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. Your favorite football team doesn't stop pushing its limits on the climb to the top, and neither does a global power technology leader like Cummins. Cummins has released its new QG4000i generator and is taking it across the country to show America that whether it's turbo diesel engines or taking it easy in your RV, life is a little bit better with a touch of the Cummins lifestyle. The Own and Unplugged tour is crisscrossing the country, including a stop in South Bend, Indiana, home of Notre Dame, when the Fighting Irish host Florida State on November 9th. FSU will play like a champion. You come by and tailgate like one. Follow Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram for updates, and don't forget to get involved every week in generating discussion on Wake Up Warchant for your opportunity to win free Cummins swag and a chance at a portable generator or power station. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Give it a follow. Home stretch here on the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Give them a follow. Again, a reminder for your social calendar this coming weekend for the Florida State Cal game, which is going down 7 o'clock, ESPN2, Doak Campbell Stadium. 5 p.m. on Friday, meet and greet over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. That's 2475 Appalachia Parkway in Tallahassee. 5 o'clock, Jeff Cameron, Corey Clark. And then on Saturday, they got a pregame show, they being Tom Lang and Jeff Cameron. That's going down 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. And then another meet and greet, or meet and greet and fool, as he called himself, Jeff Cameron, 4 to 6 p.m. over at Hotel Indigo. It's located in College Town, really convenient to the stadium. Stop by, hang out with some Nole fans, and say hi to Jeff and Tom, always keeping you guys company on game days. All right, we're going to make our picks in a moment, but we've got a large staff at warchant.com with tons of knowledge. Let's see what they've got to say and make their picks when Florida State and Cal lock horns on Saturday.
So far, I am a horrible 0-3 in my predictions, just like Florida State is 0-3 on the field, and they'll be facing a 3-0 Cal team that has a nice win against Auburn under its belt coming in here. I'm going to break my streak. I cannot pick Florida State. This iteration has looked awful every single game. I kept believing what we saw in practice, that this team is more talented than the other team. That doesn't matter. They're playing awful. Cal's got a lot of confidence coming in here, and I just don't see. Now, maybe if they make a quarterback change this week, it might shake some things up, but until I see that, at this point, I don't know if I'm going to go with FSU against anybody. Maybe one or two teams. We'll see how things go, but for now, I'm picking Cal in this one. I don't even think it's going to be close the way FSU looks. I'm going to go 23 Cal, FSU 13. The good news is one of us is going to break our losing streak. We'll see how it goes.
What's up, Nole fans? I'm actually here in my driveway here in Tallahassee to give you this pick that I know you guys all been waiting on because I'm 0 for 3. Let's see if I can go 0 for 4 this week. Look, I think Cal is probably the worst offense that Florida State has played to this point, but I think maybe by far the best defense. So I'm looking for another really exciting game in the teens. Isn't that what we all love college football for? But look, as long as Florida State's favored by Vegas, I'm going to keep picking them until they prove all of us right. So I'm going to Florida State's favored by 2.5. I'm going to take the over there. I'm going to say Florida State wins 20-17. Fitzmagic with a 51-yarder at the horn to win the game and get that first dub of the season.
Am I ready to be heard again? Sure, why not? This season's off the rails, everybody. This is just wild. I do think Florida State has a chance at the receiver position to win some battles one-on-one against that secondary, but this is a gut check game. Does Florida State still want to be there? Who's going to be the quarterback? What substitutions are going to be rolled out there? The younger Florida State is, I feel like the better chance they have to play with the enthusiasm on offense that we all are desperate to see. This one's a race to 16 points, everybody. I've got Florida State 16, Cal 13. Optimism until there's a win.
Kind of a tough one to pick because I think Cal's defense is really good, and obviously Florida State hasn't shown much of anything over the past 3 weeks or 4 weeks since they played week 0. The defense did show some life last week. I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game because I think the defenses are the strengths of both sides. Even if Florida State hasn't shown a whole lot, I think this defensive line will finally shine because their offensive line is not good at all. It's pretty much on par with Florida State's offensive line or what Florida State's offensive line has shown. So I'm still going to go with Cal win. I'm going to say something low, like 20-16 Cal.
Alrighty then. We've got some picks from those guys. Let's see if we can get some good energy pulsing through the screen, everybody. It's our turn now to make our picks. Again, Florida State taking on Cal. The Noles 0-3, limping into this one. The Golden Bears 3-0, 7 o'clock, ESPN 2. We'll go from left to right on your screen, so that means you, Irish O'Fell, get to start. Some may say age before beauty on this program.
Nicely done.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, 2.5 point spread. So, I mean, I don't know if that's really even considered a pick 'em because Florida State, like 3 points generally is what they get a home team. But yeah, man, run free with it, man. Give us something good to feel about.
Yeah, I was going to say this has really been an uplifting episode from start to finish.
They're 0-3, Ira.
Yeah.
They're 0-3, buddy.
Yeah, man. Look, after watching that Memphis game last week, I decided in that moment that I will not pick Florida State to win a football game again until they win a football game, and so I'm sticking to that. I do think on paper Florida State's a better team. I do think if you had decent quarterback play, I think you should win this game, and I think the defense should dominate Cal's offense. This is a game where Florida State's defense is playing hard, playing physically. I don't think Cal should break 10 points in Doak Campbell Stadium. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Cal's going to win the game. I'm going to say 24-17. And if I had to predict, I think Mike Norvell's probably going to stick with DJ Uiagalelei. We'll see. Maybe he'll surprise us. I just haven't felt the sense that he's ready to make this youth movement that I think everybody wants to see. And even if, again, we're not saying that's going to go well, but we've seen what's happening so far. So I'm going to pick Cal to win the game. I almost said Florida State 14, but I'll go ahead and say 17, 24-17 for Cal.
All right. Fitzy appreciates you, and he deserves
He gets
some notoriety. Jeff Cameron, what you got, man? I mean, the physicality of Cal, the sluggishness of Florida State, bad cocktail on a Saturday night.
Yeah, buddy, I have to pick Cal here. I'm with Ira. I'm not picking Florida State again. I won't pick them again this year, ever.
Charleston Southern, Jeff. We still have Charleston Southern.
I don't know. I don't know if we match up.
He needs to see the matchups.
Yeah, I got to look at the matchup, man. I'll have to look at the film. I'm not sure. I'll tell you what. I really, really hope Mike doesn't stay with the status quo. Again, I don't blame DJ for everything, but I think they've got to make this change just for elusiveness reasons, getting out of the way of these the pressures, and then also changing the math in the running game. But if he doesn't do it, I think this offense will be anemic again this week, and it disappoints me to no end to have to say this, but I'll take Cal 20-17.
I really was going to go into this game, to your point, I just think on paper they've been better than the last 3 teams they've played and they haven't won. But I'm like, just I saw a little bit out of the defense against Memphis. You feel like if you carry that over, get a little bit better, and this offense stays out of their own way. They don't run into each other blocking. They don't drop balls. They don't run into the hole with the ball not protected.
You're asking for a lot now.
Yeah, that's a lot. We're going through the check marks here.
It's a reasonable thing to ask, I guess, a good football team. And I guess right now, as we said, kind of first segment, that they're doing the things that bad football teams do. So, and I wasn't heartened by what I saw at practice. So I'm going to go with a nail biter, 17-14 Cal wins.
So, should be riveting.
You were the only one that picked Memphis last week, by the way. Shout out to Aslan.
Yeah, Aslan's all over it. Yeah.
You guys, you want to make people, the assignment, which is to make people feel good when they watch our programming. I'm just like, it's all in shambles. So.
Well, normally I would tell you to stop being so pessimistic, but I think I can top your pessimism currently, buddy. I think I am the most pessimistic amongst us at this point.
Not making any predictions on, I guess we are kind of making a prediction on the way out here about this game. If he starts Saturday, do we think this is the last game DJ Uiagalelei starts at Florida State? Jeff?
Yes.
All right. Ira?
Unless it goes well.
Right.
Yeah. There you go. That's
I don't know. I don't know how you could start him this week after last week. I just don't.
I don't either.
So if he does, then he could start him again next week. And I get it, man. I'm not trying to kill Mike Norvell and say it's inexcusable to stick with a guy who's been a 5-year college quarterback, started 45 games in his career over a kid who's had a couple of games that were just kind of chaos. So I get it. I think, we've talked about it in different shows this week. He still sees it as, how can I win this football game?
That's right.
But man, it's gonna be tough to stomach for the fans if he does stick with them, and I don't expect it to turn around.
Crazier things have happened in this sport. Northern Illinois walked into South Bend a few weeks ago, knocked off Notre Dame, and certainly that's not a magnitude of miracle that's needed for Florida State to get on the winning track. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that something materializes for Florida State. Again, taking on Cal, 7 p.m., ESPN2 Saturday night. Meet and greet 4 to 6 o'clock before the game. Pregame show 9 a.m. as well. Check all of that out. Jeff Cameron's got a show for you folks on Friday as well, right? You're still doing 3 hours on a Friday because you're just grinding, Jeff Cameron.
Doing these things, baby. Let's go.
The man of
Everything
people.
else you need, warchant.com. All hours, all days is available. For Ira and Jeff and the rest of our staff over at warchant.com, thank you so much for watching this edition of the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins.